Guys, James from Bolt Bros here. Let's talk playoffs. Yeah, let's talk playoffs here, guys. For the Chargers and all the teams in the NFL right now, this might be just kind of a one-off segment all around for us because it's obviously a week-to-week thing for the Chargers specifically. But hey, there is a chance, guys. There is a chance. Might be slim, but there is a chance. So let's get into it. Bolt Bros, let's go.
I'm Dale Henley. You watching the Bolt Bros podcast? Let's do it!
So playoffs, yeah, it's kind of odd for us to talk about it. Call me crazy, call me insane. Maybe I'm just too positive about this team in some level. But, it takes to be a Chargers fan, it's tough. Bottom line. And there's always a little bit of hope inside you. Really the big thing about it is that we got to find consistency on this team, and we'll look at the schedule ahead. But let's focus on the entire playoff scope right now, what it looks like at the moment. So obviously Miami Dolphins, number one seed right now, sitting tied with the Baltimore Ravens at 2, tie break based upon win percentage in conference games right now. Chiefs basically at the 3 seed, win tie break over Jacksonville based a head-to-head win percentage right now, and Jacksonville being at 4. The thing about it is these top 3 teams are probably going to get in. I'm pretty confident about that. The Chiefs will be in there some level. They'll take the division for sure. I don't have a problem with that. I think all 3 of these teams will make it in either 1, 2, or 3 level. Jacksonville Jaguars are one that changed a lot last night, in my opinion. Where they're going to be seated, things could shift. We'll chat about that. Steelers, things shifted with them too. They obviously have a very solid defense. Quarterback shifting once again now to Mitch Trubisky. We'll talk more about that. Browns, same thing that happened there. They are now, I think, on the 3rd or 4th quarterback now with Joe Flacco. Things shifted there too. Colts, obviously they got Gardner Minshew right now, who seems to be doing pretty well at the moment, but things could shift quite a bit. You're sitting at the 7, tied with the Texans at this point. Texans are hot. Things are shifting with them a little bit too. We'll see how that goes. Broncos, big matchup this weekend, obviously, against the Chargers. Kind of inconsistent as a team too. Bengals, shifting of quarterbacks too. Kind of interesting to see how that's all going to develop. Bills too, very inconsistent. Chargers, we know who they are, as this channel talks about the Chargers all the time. We'll talk more about them. And I'm just going to throw in the Raiders there just for the fact that they are 5-7, and we do play them once here in the next couple weeks. So, once again, it's also family, trust, respect here all the time, every day, guys. So let's just jump right into the actual breakdowns of all the schedules at the moment. And, we'll obviously start from the top of where they're currently seated at the number 4 seed with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So, last night, a lot of things shifted for them. That's kind of a big loss if Trevor Lawrence is going to be gone for a while. They sound like there's an ankle sprain there. It sounds like it could be at least a couple games. I mean, he didn't seem like he had the best ability to walk on it. High ankle sprains are tough. I know that there has been, Kenny Pickett for the Steelers had surgery to try to help out his high ankle sprain. I didn't even know there was a surgery ability to be able to create that a faster healing process on that. I would assume that's kind of going to be something the same thing with Trevor Lawrence going forward. Obviously, they need him back sooner than later. With the Texans breathing down their necks, this could shift a lot with that seeding for that 4 seed. So either which way, schedule ahead. Browns, Jaguars, big game this weekend. Browns obviously have a very, very good defense. I feel like the Jaguars have a very good defense, but it's going to be a little different with C.J. Beathard as their quarterback for the Jaguars. And the Browns are just trying to find a way to stay in it at this point. Hence, they went after Joe Flacco to try to bring him in for their quarterback for the rest of the season. I mean, it's been going through a quarterback carousel with the Browns and has been for the last 20-something years. So interesting game ahead. But then looking ahead with the Jaguars, big game against the Ravens. That's tough. It looks like a Sunday night football game. Buccaneers, that one's going to be fine. I think they'll be good on that one. Panthers, obviously, everybody's beating up the Panthers, and the Titans, too, are a little bit of a scrappy team. So, these next two games are massive for the Jaguars. It would have been interesting if they played this Texan game that they played the week before as the final game of the year. That would really make this whole schedule be an interesting one for the Jaguars. But there's a great chance that the Jaguars could kind of falter for the next two games. I'm not too sure and not too sold about the Browns by any means, but I think that they have a somewhat soft schedule ahead. But there's a chance that the Texans, if they keep pace with them, they could find a way to be able to get into a division winning, season, which would be, I didn't expect the Texans to win 3 games this year, guys. I mean, it's unbelievable to see that. So we will see where that pans out for that one. Kind of ironically, as a Chargers fan, you want the Jaguars to win this weekend. So you want them to beat the Browns, and obviously because they're ahead of us in playoffs. Steelers, sitting in the 5th seed right now. That is an interesting one all around for them. I mean, Steelers, man, Kenny Pickett, you fire Matt Canada. You think the offense is fixed. You did have a 400-yard game, first time since 2018 after you fire Matt Canada. But you once again have a quarterback situation. Now you have Mitch Trubisky again. Not the best situation for a quarterback by any means. There seems to be a very common theme right now with a lot of these teams. A lot of second, quarterbacks in, third quarterbacks in. It's a lot of shifting in that quarterback position, which we all know is a very critical position in the NFL. So with the Steelers playing against the Patriots this weekend, Thursday night game coming up, that's a big game, guys. Patriots, they have a very good defense, an inept offense. With Mitch Trubisky, Steelers might have a completely inept offense too. This could be an extremely low-scoring game. It could go either which way on this one, guys. Once again, the Patriots are in a quarterback carousel. They're completely out of the playoffs. There's no way they're going to make it. But unbelievable to be able to see what this game's going to be, because this is a massive one for the Steelers and seeding for this team. Because if you look ahead, they're playing against the Colts. Obviously, they're sitting in the playoffs currently right now. Bengals are fighting to be able to get into the playoffs. Seahawks, same thing for the NFC. Ravens to end the season. That's a brutal schedule, guy. This Thursday night game for the Steelers is absolutely massive for them. They have got to find a way to win this one. So wild 5-game stretch for them. I'm not sure where the Steelers are at. I'm not feeling too comfortable with them. I will say, since it's Mike Tomlin at the head coaching position, they will be 9-8 minimum. Minimum. They will always have a winning season with Mike Tomlin. It's just how it is. So interesting development with the Steelers all around. Moving on. The Browns, like we just chatted a little bit about. Quarterback carousel situation there. I think it's their 4th quarterback this year that has started for them. Maybe 3rd, but either which way, Joe Flacco's out there now going against the Jaguars. I mean, we really need the Jaguars to be able to beat the Browns just to be able to allow us to keep pace a little bit. The thing with the Browns schedule, and when Joe Flacco came in, I kept thinking, I don't know if they're going to really have a very, very good season from this point on with Joe Flacco as their starting quarterback. But when I start looking at the schedule, I'm like, well, you got the Jaguars this weekend, which I think they will probably beat the Browns. The Bears next week, which have been a little bit of a scrappier team than you think. The big thing about the Browns is they have a very good, solid defense. They don't have much of a running game anymore. They also don't have much continuity for the quarterback position. Joe Flacco did have a pretty fair game, but once again, week to week at this position and this time, guys. So I do think that there's a chance that they could flounder a little bit at this point. And then they play the Texans and then the Jets. The Jets are a tough defense versus a tough defense with the Browns. We'll see where that leads. And then the Bengals, that might be one of those games that might put it in or out of the playoffs all around. So I don't know, man. I mean, there's a chance that they could only win 8 games for the rest of the season or get to 8 wins this season, or even to not win one this season. So, we'll see where that one leads, guys. Moving on, Colts. That game against the Titans in OT was absolutely massive for their team. I mean, an absolute prayer by Gardner Minshew to be able to bomb that ball deep, 55 yards, to get Alec Pierce into the red zone and then nail it for the touchdown, for the walk-away touchdown to Michael Pittman. Big game all around. But once again, this game this weekend is even bigger too. 2 teams in the running for playoffs. Colts, Bengals. That's going to be a tough one. with Browning over there now being the quarterback and what he did last night against the Jaguars, or excuse me, on Monday night, that's going to be something to watch. This is, once again, two backup quarterbacks going up against each other. It seems like there's been this year of backup quarterbacks for a lot of teams. It seems like a lot more than it's been of recent. So that's a massive game just for the seeding side of things. Technically, you kind of really don't know exactly where you want to be as a Chargers fan. Do you want the Bengals or do you want the Colts to win this one? It's kind of almost in a weird way. You kind of want the Bengals to win because you want to be able to get the Colts to kind of push down a little bit. But it's kind of a tough one to figure out. Now, the Colts get a little tougher from here. Colts, Steelers at home for the Colts. Falcons, who are leading the NFC South right now. You got the Raiders, who kind of one of those teams that you're kind of on the bubble with, where you're unsure if they're good or they're bad. And then the Texans. That's a brutal, brutal schedule right there, guys. That is a very brutal schedule. So Colts right now, I mean, with the Colts right now are kind of in this odd position right now. We don't know exactly where they're going to be. It could be kind of one of those teams that stays at 9-8. And that's where it's like there is this shifting where there's possibly a lot of 9-8 teams that might be those wild card based teams, because there is a lot going on here, guys. It's very hard to think that maybe 10-7 might happen. It could happen, but you really got to find a way to get a couple steals ahead right now for the Colts to be able to really, really stay in this one. Tough schedule ahead for the Colts. So once again, there's a good chance 8-9. There's potential 10-7. I really feel it's almost a 9-8 situation for the Colts. That makes sense with Shane Steichen being the head coach there. He's done a phenomenal job so far. That's going to be an interesting one to watch with the Colts, but keep an eye on that one. Now with the Texans, man, fun team, offensive rookie of the year, CJ Stroud. I'm going to say it. He won it. Texans are a great team and they seem extremely coached and doing way better than I ever thought. This is the team that I do fully expect to be able to get into the playoffs. They will find a way in the playoffs for sure. I kind of look at them as more of a 10-7 base type team. I could see that truly, truly happening. And with the schedule ahead, you think Jets, I mean, obviously we know their defense is legit, inept offense. They're still trying to figure out if they want to bring in Zach Wilson or not. Sounds like Zach Wilson wants to be apprehensive to even be a starting quarterback. Who knows what's going to happen there? You got Tim Boyle there currently right now. So either way, I think the Texans will win this weekend. Titans, scrappy team. I don't think that the Texans should lose that one. Browns, Texans, massive game there for them, guys, for both of those teams. See where that one, that's a big, big game on their schedule. And then the Titans, Texans, once again, scrappy team. It's tough to be able to win both games in the inner division. There could be a hiccup game there. And then the Texans, Colts to end the season. That is a big, big game. And once again, TBD for a reason. The NFL loves to find dramatic base games for late in the season. And that's could potentially be one into the prime spotlight for Sunday night, Monday night base type football game. So either which way, we'll see where that leads. Moving on. Broncos, unbelievable where they've gotten. I mean, went on a 5-game win streak, finally lost one. Now they have a lot of big games ahead of them. It is a kind of a tough schedule in a sense. Chargers this weekend. As a Chargers fan, this is a massive, massive game for us. For the Broncos, it's a big one for division purposes and specifically tiebreaker for the Chargers and Broncos in the division and seeding for the playoffs. Broncos Lions, that's going to be a fun one to watch, guys. Saturday night game 2 for that one. Tough game for the Broncos ahead. Patriots Broncos, I mean, we know where they're at. It's going to be kind of a weird one, possibly a low scoring one for that one. And then the Chargers play the Broncos once again. I mean, there's a lot of AFC teams beating each other up for the end of the season. And then obviously the Broncos and the season with the Raiders. I'm not really sure where we could really seed the Broncos at this point. I mean, I'm going to probably say at this point where they're sitting at 6-6, there's a chance they could go more of like an 8-9 or like a 10-7 situation. I do think that there's this 9-8 team potential that can get into the 7th seed. So we will see. There might actually be 2 teams that end up being the 6-7 as a 9-8 team. There's a lot of shifting, guys, at the quarterback positions with a lot of these teams in the running. So keep that in mind. That really changes the perspective of how this whole playoff race works. Maybe I'm crazy. I don't know, but I think there's a good chance that 2 9-8 teams find a way into the playoffs. Moving on. Bengals, big win once again last night against the Jaguars. That pretty much saved their run to the playoffs. It's odd to say that because they would have basically been a 5-7 team, just of where the Chargers are at. But either which way, that's big to keep them in the running. Colts Bengals this weekend. Big one, guys. Big one for them. This one, I'm kind of unsure about which way to go. You kind of almost want the Bengals to win, just to kind of keep the race to be able to potentially get down to more 9-8 based teams to be able to get in the playoffs of the wild card slots. Bengals Vikings, massive, massive game. Obviously for the Vikings, they are in the running right now. They are looking to be able to clinch something in for the playoffs. That's a big one. Steelers Bengals, big one. Once again, interdivision type games are massive for seeding at this point. Then the Bengals Chiefs, that's going to be a tough one. And then Browns Bengals to end the season. That's a very tough schedule ahead for the Bengals. Very, very, very tough. They could easily, possibly lose every single game from here on out. Maybe one that I could really, really hang my hat on. I mean, once again, I'm not too sold on the Browns on going too far at this point, just because they don't have a quarterback at this moment. Unless Joe Flacco has a second coming of Super Bowl Joe Flacco, who knows? But either which way, there's a very good chance that the Bengals could basically only win maybe one and possibly go 7-10. There's possibility they could go, 8-9. I don't know. It's really about Browning and what he could basically do at this point. So we'll see where that pans out, guys. So on to the Bills. The Bills Chiefs this weekend. That's that's going to be a fun one to watch. Buckle up for that one, guys. Then the Cowboys Bills ahead. And then the Bills Chargers. This is a massive game for both of these teams at this point of the year. Depending on when I'll chat about the Chargers here shortly, that's could be the nail in the coffin game for both of these teams, in my opinion. Patriots Bills, and then the Bills Dolphins. This is a tough one really to understand where the Bills are at, because they've been such an inconsistent team all around. I do feel like their last game that they did have, they kind of showed life, but they still ended up losing it towards the Eagles to the Eagles in overtime. Started showing kind of that eliteness as a team, and they found a way to lose that one to the Eagles. I mean, obviously, Eagles are a very good team, but it's going to be a rough ride for the Bills ahead. I mean, there's a chance they could possibly go 9-8, 8-9. There's a possibility of 10-7. There's a lot of these teams in this cluster that could be a lot of these 9-8, 10-7 type situations. These type of tie-based games like here for the Chargers are massive. This one probably not going to get the division, so that's really not going to make much of a difference. I don't think that this game's going to really be too much of a relevancy unless the Bills need a win to get in, kind of thing. So interesting thing to watch the Bills. Bills are one of those teams that could easily find a way into the playoffs too. It's just about finding consistency. On to our Chargers here. So Broncos Chargers. Guys, I know a lot of our fan base is really, really bummed about it. I mean, I understand we had high expectations to this team. I understand where we were sitting. Chargers like to find ways to make it difficult on themselves. And I've said that for a long time. Being a Chargers fan is not for the weak. And so we cannot, it's a tough thing to be able to get through. And this is what the Chargers tend to do, is they make it harder on themselves. But I'm putting my hopes on that the defense is starting to show up. You know, giving up only 20 points to the Ravens and doing what they did against them, I think was good. I personally think it was really only 13 points that the Chargers defense gave up. Obviously, shutting out the Patriots last week in an absolute ugly game was pretty critical, but they found a way to basically win that one. Thing is, though, this team needs to find continuity. That's the whole issue to this team. We need to find a way to get our offenses going, because our offense has been kind of bad the last 2 weeks, scoring only 16 points in the last 2 weeks. We got to find a way to get that offense going. Our defense is showing up, ironically, the last 2 weeks. So maybe we've turned a little bit of a corner with a lot of shifting of players. This Broncos-Chargers game is massive for us. I mean, really, the next 3 games are absolutely massive for us. You know, going back to some of the questions there and what I was saying, that there's a chance that a 9-8 team could come around. The tiebreaker situation is with the Broncos. You got to win one of those at least. You got to beat the Raiders, sweep them. You got to work on that division record more or less. That is going to be massive for this team. The Bills-Chargers game could be one of those games. Once again, I said the nail in the coffin potential game. That could be the ender for this season for both of those teams. And then we obviously have the Broncos and the Chiefs at the end. There is that whole interdivision record that is going to be massive for the Chargers. We have 4 interdivision-based games for the last 5 games. Bottom line, you win out that gives you the best chance. And I'll give you guys a scenario of how that all works here later on. And I'm just going to talk briefly about the Raiders just because they have the same record as the Chargers. And obviously, they have the ability to play us in 2 weeks. Thing is, though, they have a very tough schedule. And it's very hard to understand where they're sitting right now with a new head coach at this moment as an interim head coach. But they play the Vikings, they play the Chargers, they play the Chiefs, they play the Colts, they play the Broncos. Not easy, guys. So, I mean, there's a chance that the Raiders might get 1 to 2 of those. Go 7-10. There's a chance they could possibly go 8-9. It's going to be a hard road for them. But anyways, family, trust, respect. So that's the scenarios that we got going on right now. This is a little bit longer of the video all around, but I might sound like a little psychopath basically saying that there's a chance. But let me just show you one little bit just before I close out this video. And I thought it was an interesting thing to see. You know, obviously what it is, and this is from the LA Times, an article basically talking about the chances for the Chargers. And currently it's at 9%. So you're saying there's a chance, guys. The one thing I wanted to point out here is this: if there's this win-loss kind of probability where it ends up kind of breaking it down, you know, bottom line, you got to win this weekend first off to even keep a chance. You get a small increase at that point, 13%. If you lose this weekend, pretty much you're toast at this point. I mean, 1 to 2%, there's really going to be a slim chance. You know, I'm going to just kind of say, let's say we win out completely. But win out completely, that'll put you at 10-7. There's a great chance at that point. If, let's say we just lose 1, and I'm just going to put against the Chiefs, you have a 31% chance at that point. So, guys, there is this chance, and what I basically have broken down to is that there is this chance you could lose 1 and have a chance. There is a 9-8 situation. It really depends on who you end up losing to in the next 5 games. But really, if we just find a way to win out, we have a great chance to make the playoffs. I know it's tough for us Chargers fans to really look at that and say, hey, we got a chance, right? Talk playoffs. It's been an inconsistent season. I get it 100%. But guys, there is a chance. We'll talk about this possibly week to week. It's all going to be dependent on what the Chargers do week to week. But guys, keep the faith, guys. Keep it going. And remember, stay bolted, guys. And once again, James from Bolt Bros, let's go.